The batch processing interface doesn't have an entry in the manual. You go to the menu, you're not going to see like batch processing interface in there, right? You're just going to see the typical things. But it's called from the toolbox, right? So if you want to execute an algorithm in the batch processing mode, instead of for one layer, you want to do it for 100 layers, or not necessarily. You can do like the same algorithm for one layer, but with different input values. Imagine, for instance, that you have your, I'll say it, the algorithm that computes the watersheds from the DM. It takes the DM, right? And I'll say it. And the threshold, right? And you say, okay, I want to calculate this for this DM, but with 10 different thresholds, right? You don't have to go and like run it 10 times. You go on the batch processing interface and you put all your 10 different values in a column and it's done, right? So that's the idea. It's not necessarily for running all the layers in a folder. No, you can use it one layer but with different values. So it's just to make it easy to run an algorithm several times, right? Several times in automated fashion, right? So we go in the toolbox and we have to find our algorithm. To run an algorithm, we were just double clicking on it. Now instead of double clicking, we're going to right click on it and we will select execute as batch process, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all data in here. Right. And I'm not completely sure about the version that you have, because this is one of the very recent changes. But traditionally, the batch processing interface, it works with layers that are in file. So it's like with files, not with layers that are open here. But recently, we added the option to be able to work directly with the layers that are loaded. So it's a different thing. I don't know if in your version it's going to be one way or the other. We'll see anyway. But what we're going to try to do is to get a bunch of layers, right, and convert them to a different format. Remember what we did yesterday? We said, yeah, it was yesterday. We said if I put the output file name as a GeoJSON, it's going to write a GeoJSON, right, or DXF, or the type of file. So I have in one of the folders in your sample data, we have a bunch of shapefiles. And so like we can convert that into a group of layers in another format, in a GeoJSON format, for instance. How will you do that? I can open all my layers, just go save as, save as, save as, and do it. Or I can do it somehow in processing, like once for each layer. But there should be a way of converting them all together, right? This is what we are going to see, right? But I don't need the layers open here, because the batch processing interface works now, as I said, it works with layers also, but especially with files. So I'm going to select the files directly in the batch processing interface, so I don't need to open any project, right? There's an algorithm called save selected features. You will see it twice because one is an example script that actually does that. But save selected features, basically it saves a layer. Remember, if there's no selection, everything is selected. That's the idea in processing, right? So if there is no selection, everything is selected. It will save the layer. So it's like save layer, basically. It saves a vector layer, right? So what I'm going to do is call this save vector layer, but many different times. Once for each file that I want to convert, right? So instead of just double clicking on it, if I double click on it, you see like it's very easy. Give me a layer, give me where you want to save, that's it. So it's pretty simple. Instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is right click on it and select execute as batch process. And when we go to the normal execution, we see the parameters one on top of each other. It's like, you know, a list of parameters. When we go in the batch processing interface, we're going to see them in a row, one after the other. And then I'm going to have many different rows. Each row is one execution of the algorithm, right? We're going to see that now. There you have it. This is the batch processing interface corresponding to the save selected features, save layer, right? Because there's no selection. And what I have to do is each one of these rows is an execution, right? It's like input layer and the output. And in this case, I can select if I want to load all of them or not, you know, just by doing this. But I can just generate all the layers and do not load them, right? In this case, I might not load them actually. Right. So I have to do the same thing as I do in a normal execution, just fill the parameters, right? In the normal one, I just selected a layer, and I just selected a place where I wanted to save it. There are differences. The main difference is that in here, I don't have the list of all the layers, because I can work directly with files. That makes it easier, for instance, to select all the files in a folder, right? If I have a folder with 100 files, I can select them, and I will show you how to do it, right? Another thing is that temporary outputs are not supported in here. You must enter a file name here, right? There's no temporary outputs. If I'm doing something with the batch processing interface and it might not even be loaded in QGIS, it makes sense that you actually want to have it in a place where you have it well located, not a temporary file. So this is not the same approach, right? But other than that, it's the same thing. I give some inputs, I select the outputs, and it will run the algorithm once for each row. 1, 2, 3, depending on the row, right? The only thing that we have to do is to fill up all those fields, right? Enter the content in there. So I should enter my file name and where I want to save it, my file name, which is going to be a shape file, and where I want to save it, it's going to be a GeoJSON file, etc., right? What happens if I have 100 files? Well, I have to do that 100 times? No. We're going to see that there are some little tricks that I can use to fill that more quickly, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is to click on that button to enter the file name of my input layer, right? The file name. And if I click in here, I see that. I don't know if you see that. No, it just opens directly the file selector dialog, right? Okay, this is what I said. Now, this version is more advanced, and you can use layers that are open, but in your case, you just can use files, no problem, because this example just actually runs from file. So it's the same as if I click in select from file system. So now we have to navigate to the data folder, the folder where you have all your sample data, and there should be a folder named batch conversion in there. So wherever you've put your data, batch conversion, and you should have these 3 files. Is that it? You find it? Okay, if I select these 3 files, right? This is, the field in here. It's asking me for an input layer. It's asking me for 1 file, right? But it lets me select more. If I select more, instead of, it will take the first one and put it in here, and then start filling that up, right? If I select 10, it will add extra rows automatically, right? So I don't have to type each one. I can just select, this whole folder, right? I select it, and it's smart enough to know that this is not the input for the layer I clicked in, for the field I click in, for this row, but it's the input for other rows. So it starts filling it up, right? So I'm going to select these 3 ones, and I'm going to add them in there, right? There they are. And make that a little bit bigger. Okay, that's it. Okay, this is a very simple algorithm actually, because I don't have a lot of parameters to set up. In fact, let me check what's going. Okay, that's it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make that smaller actually. Okay, that makes sense. So now what I have to fill is the output, right? Okay, I can put in here like wherever my destination file .geojson and do it for all of them. The same thing, I can do that a little bit more practical, and I can fill that automatically. So what I'm going to do is to click on the button. I can type directly the name if you want, but just click on here, and you're going to see the same file selector dialog. Actually, I'm going to put in here D. So I'm going to select a GeoJSON file. Actually, I remember we're having this problem with the GeoJSON actually, but let's see. Well, I'll just write it manually anyway. So let's write in here like whatever file .geojson. Make sure you type the extension correctly, right? file.geojson, right? So now it is going to ask me, because I said, okay, I put this d/file.geojson in the first cell, but it's going to ask me like, do you want me to automatically fill that with, using this file GeoJSON? You want me to fill all the other ones? And it's going to give me that option to automatically fill all the ones that I have, right? So this is the autofill, right? So I can select not to autofill. That's like it puts in here d/file.geojson, and that's it. Or I can select to fill with numbers. Then it's going to make like file1.geojson, file2.geojson, file3, etc., right? So that makes it easier. I don't have to worry about it. In this case, I just have 3, but I might have 100, right? And the most interesting one probably is filled with the value of another field, of a parameter. That means that it's going to take the value of another place, and it's like file plus the value in here, right? It's not going to take the full thing. It's going to create like file pt1, file pt2, file pt3, right? So that's going to do it. So I can just get the idea, right? So it's just taking my input file as a prefix, and then it's going to use the value of this layer, this parameter, as a suffix, right? So that's how it's going to do it. See it? It's automatically filled. So you can do it by hand, type in all the names. Not a problem if you have 3. A bit more boring if you have a few hundred, right? But see, it's very easy that way. So I'm telling like, tell this, take this file, save it into here. Take this file, save it into here. It's like, this is a shapefile, I want a GeoJSON. Right? So you do the conversion very, very easily, right? And it's not that difficult. Get the idea? Go no, 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 no. You just change the first one. And if you want to copy the value from this one into all the other ones, you just double click on the header in here. And then just change that, right? Right? This is also the same if you have numbers. Like if you have a field with a number, you want to put that one. Or imagine that what I said, I want to run this on the same layer. You just select the layer in the first one, and then you double click, and it will use the same layer for all the other ones, right? And then you just fill whatever you want differently, right? So that's it. Okay, so that's it. Now we have the table. I have defined 3 different executions of the save features algorithm, and that should be it. If I click on run, it will run the batch process. That's it. It converted 3, right? And if I go there, it should be there. A lot of rubbish in here, actually. You see file GeoJSON, file GeoJSON, file GeoJSON. They're there. So it's pretty easy to do the conversion. If I want to turn 100 shape files into 100 whatever DXF files, right? It's pretty easy, right? Now here's an exercise. 2 exercises that I have for you. The first one is very simple, right? As just open one of them, right? One of those files. I'm actually going to open them. Sorry. No, this same one for the batch conversion. See, all these files, they have this 23030 CRS. Okay, I want to convert the 3 of them in the batch processing interface into EPSG 4326, right? So convert them from one CRS to another using the batch processing interface. So it's basically the same we've been doing, but with a different algorithm. Reproject one, execute as a batch process, select the input layers. This is exactly the same as I did last time. I select my 3 points, 3 points layers. Then the target CRS is 4326. That happens to be the default one, so I don't have to do any change. But remember that I could just change, select any other one, just double click on the header and it will copy the value. There's no problem with that. And then the output is the same thing. I just do the same that in the other example I was just saving to a GeoJSON, and this time I can save it to a shape file again. So I just put it in wherever in D, and I call it like reprojected. That's it. And I take the field with parameter values. So it's a reprojected 0.1, reprojected 0.2, reprojected 0.3, right? That's it. And that's basically it. Don't have to do any other thing. Just run it, and there they are. They all have the same name because that's the output of the algorithm, right? And it just uses that generic name, but you see that they are different files, right? So that's basically it, right? You see, I'm doing things, right? As another example and another exercise for you, we have our DM, right? And we've been calculating the watersheds. I recommended you a value of 10 million, right? So what about calculating the watersheds from 1 million to 10 million? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and do that. Like, or, you know, if you take this here, like do from 2, like 1 million, 3 million, 5, 7, and 10, something like that, right? So try to get that. Calculate the watersheds for several different thresholds, right? Like do 5, 6 thresholds from 1 million to 10 million, right? How you do that, right? In a single shot, of course.